polarization of their labor leader prevented labor from me. I mean, again, like their version of Bernie Sanders is actually in charge of their left wing.
Okay, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that analogy, but it is remarkable to watch this happen, and I'm sort of in your camp. I don't really feel sorry for Theresa May because she did sign up for this and she handled it so poorly. But look, I think there is a way out of this, right? Like, look, the British people.
Oh, when Boris Johnson announced the second referendum, even though he helped secure the victory of the first.
Not a chance.
Oh, don't be.
No, I'm saying.
I don't put anything past him.
Okay, I mean the chutzpah, but look, if people actually understand what they're voting for and if they're very clear about it, like there does need to be no vote clearly, and who knows what will happen, but I think that is the way out of this mess. They have to put something back.
Either way, I mean, we should.
It's nowhere close.
The EU,
Nowhere close.
It's been a mess since Brexit. Like the entire continent has just been sort of unnerved by this. This was arguably more successful Russian operation, if you believe they were helping with the Brexit, than anything that happened in this country.
You know, going back to what you were saying earlier, a lot of our problems in this constitutional system seem to stem from the winner-take-all system. It means we can only have two parties and everything's polarized and it doesn't seem to work. And there's been a reason that all the other democracies have developed after our parliamentary system, which was much more flexible and looked like avoided some of the problems that we have. And yet here is a parliamentary system that cannot get its act together. And just the whole thing is a demonstration of the failures of democracy to function in the 21st century, and it has to make authoritarian leaders, not least Putin, sit back and laugh.
Well, not only that, though, you do get a sense that I feel like people are more and more comfortable with wondering they want strong leaders because they're afraid of the you're seeing more comfort in some corners with this.
Well, I mean, there is a broad disappointment with establishment political parties in America and everywhere. It's same. But the problem is there's also this product of we can call it over-democratization. I mean, the reason we have a leader in the Labour Party who has kept the Conservatives in power, and to my mind will for the foreseeable future, because he is so dreadful, is because they opened up the entire primary system to everybody, which means that everybody votes.
But you know, it's funny. It's sort of, you could make the same analogy to the media. Social media helped create this thing and it's almost out of control. I take your point. It's like we don't like smoke-filled rooms, but wait a minute. There's a reason we're not a direct democracy in this country either, I think.
Right, but like the extremes just don't work. There has to be something in the middle. Compromise. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. To your original point about this foretell something that's going to happen here. If it means that Donald Trump is gone in like 6 months, then that's great. But
my theory is that simply we could be headed, and we're not going to know this for a while. We could be headed for a series of one-term presidents, which would be our version of what's been happening in the UK, right? And we went through this at one period of time in this country. Back in the early 19th century, there was a time that ended that wasn't a good ending. It was Charlie, Danielle, and Danny. Thank you all. That's all I have for tonight. We'll be back Monday with more Meet the Press Daily. And if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press on NBC. We'll get into the Democratic debate over impeachment, hearing from both sides of that divide, and the growing feud between the president and Speaker Pelosi. We'll check in with the traveling White House in Japan. But the debate with Ari Melber starts right now. Good evening, Ari.
Good evening, Chuck. Thank you very much. We have a lot to get to on this Friday night, but we begin with this debate roiling Washington and, of course, living rooms across the country, whether or not it would be time to impeach the president of the United States. Consider this new reporting back from NBC News. At least 38 House Democrats now calling for Congress to at least begin impeachment proceedings. That would be a step before impeaching Donald Trump, but it would be quite the step. Signs they are not alone. Well, today a former Republican congressman joins the only currently serving GOP House member to say that Donald Trump, in their view, committed impeachable offenses. Missouri's Tom Coleman calling to impeach Trump in a new survival of our very democracy is at risk. All this comes after a wild week of escalating tensions over impeachment.
If Don McGahn doesn't testify, it is time to open an impeachment inquiry.
The Democratic rebellion late last night, key Democrats pressed House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to move forward with an impeachment inquiry.
This is no longer about politics, but this is about upholding the rule of law.
We believe that the President of the United States is engaged in a cover-up.
I walk in to look at people that had just said that I was doing a cover-up. I don't do cover-ups. The I word. The I word. Can you imagine?
The House
legislators hold off if the rank and file, aided by some of these new Republican voices in the wilderness, are backing impeachment or impeachment hearings. Well, will they hear from the man who could be their star witness, Bob Mueller?
No,
Mueller,
fucking get it. We'll count for
he,
it.
I think I can say at this point that he wants to testify in private.
What?
I don't know why. He wants to testify. He's willing to make an opening statement, but he wants to testify in private. And we're saying we think it's important for the American people to hear from him and to hear his answers to questions about the report.
That's some news. In a moment, I'll speak about all this with one of the Democratic members of Congress who's leading this charge for impeachment. We'll begin first right now with Maya Wiley, former counsel to the mayor of New York and a civil prosecutor in the Southern District, and Christina Greer, political science professor at Fordham. Good evening to both of you. Christina, on the congressional politics of this, has Pelosi on this wild week done enough in your view to hold her line, or are we seeing a slow but steady march for something more than just a war of words?
I think we're definitely seeing the steady march towards impeachment. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi is a seasoned legislator, and she was around in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was impeached. I think what is frustrating for many Democrats who want impeachment, especially some of the newer, younger Democrats who are calling for impeachment, is that they're essentially saying, this is not the 1990s. Donald Trump is not President Clinton. The circumstances are completely different. We were looking at something where in the late 90s it was embarrassing to President Clinton, his wife, his family, and some other entities, but we weren't looking at full, widespread corruption and possibly the destruction of American democracy and our institutions. And so the Democrats saw how Republicans were punished post-impeachment, but I don't think that we're in that scenario, in that situation right now. And so this is why so many Democrats slowly but surely are saying, this is something that we must do because we don't know if our democracy can survive another 2 to 4 to 6 years of a Trump presidency. And a sycophantic Republican Congress that essentially is co-signing everything that the president does. The Supreme Court is doing the same thing, and now we see a DOJ that is essentially working for a president and not the United States Constitution.
Well, you mentioned that on the DOJ, and I think that's such an important point, Maya, because if you look at what Christina's saying, it's not like things just stay the same. It's not that Pelosi can just hold the line and say, well, this is as bad as it gets in the view of the Democrats. A lot of experts and progressives and some Republicans, as I showed in our lead, are saying, well, it's not neutral because the Trump Justice Department is barreling forward on trying to investigate the investigators. The President of the United States is falsely, arguably, defamatory way accusing former investigators of treason. And so with that in mind, does more need to be done on the House side?
Yeah, I think it does, and for all the reasons that Chrissy said. But in addition, to your point, Ari, remember that Donald Trump is actually using the tools available to him as president, as the world's most powerful person, for his own personal gain. That's essentially what he's asked William Barr to do in giving him this unprecedented power in terms of declassifying national security. And, if you go back to what impeachment represents, at least the process for Congress to try to determine whether or what articles of impeachment it might write up, right? That's the process, the hearing process. This is the same president that, in addition to what we've seen and heard in Robert Mueller's report, that was already spun in a way that kind of confused the American public about what Robert Mueller was saying he found, including explicitly saying significant evidence of obstruction of justice. But also, this is the same president that overrode, national security clearances for 25 people in the White House when the Carreras said, you should decline these. Some of those being his family members. So the point about, the history of impeachment in this country and what the underpinning of the Constitution isn't about whether or not the president could be convicted of a crime. It's maladministration, it's abuse of power. And Congress has to, if it's going to uphold its constitutional obligation, it has to actually consider and look at the evidence to consider whether or not to have articles of impeachment. Just one other quick point that I think is so interesting in the polling. You know, a recent poll that just came out showed that even while Americans are kind of saying, I don't know if Congress should impeach, they're also 73% are saying they want to hear from Robert Mueller, and 66% are saying they want to hear from Don McGahn. That doesn't sound like the American people think this is a do-over.
Interesting. Both of you hang with me. I want to turn to one of these members of Congress as we've been discussing. The fine Texas Congressman Al Green introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump in 2017 and says this week that you think these impeachment proceedings will begin. Let's take a look.
Are you any more hopeful that impeachment proceedings are going to move forward in the near future?
I believe that they will. But it depends on what you mean by near future. But I think so. I think we're on the way there.
If that's the case, when would that begin in your view, and would that mean that the Speaker has handled this wrongly?
All right, man.
We may be having... Oh, yes. Congressman, sorry if we're having any... I think I'm being told briefly we're having audio issues, so that's on me, and I'll repeat the question. Okay, good. Let me repeat the question. Thank you for coming on. I was playing that sound of you, so we heard briefly you in the hallway talking about these potential impeachment proceedings coming soon. And so I put the question to you, sir. What does soon mean? When would that be? And if so, does that mean the Speaker has handled this, in your view, wrongly?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Melvin. Sir, we are at the crossroads of accountability. These are the crossroads for the House of Representatives. Either we will hold the president accountable, or we will be held accountable. It really is that simple. The House is now on trial. We are part of the issue that is being litigated in the court of public opinion. And whether or not we will handle this appropriately depends on whether we will put politics above principle. If we put politics above principle, we're going to be held accountable. If we put party above people, we're going to be held accountable. And if we put the president above the law, we're going to be held accountable. There is no middle ground here.
You put it so clearly there. I think some viewers listening to you would say, wow, that sounds pretty straightforward. As you know, whether we name them or not, there are colleagues of yours, teammates of yours, if you will, who are saying the opposite. They're saying, if it's not going to get through the Senate, if you can't win over Republicans, I think what you're referring to as politics, then it's not even worth starting. Why is that wrong?
I don't say that they're wrong. I think that people are entitled to their opinions. But here's my position. This started some time ago, some 2 years ago. And quite frankly, I was alone in this process for a good deal of the time. But it's better to stand alone than not stand at all. There are many people who are now convinced that we need to move forward with the process. I believe that in the final analysis, there will be a majority of the people in the House of Representatives who will not allow this impeachment movement to be just talking points. They will see it as an action item. They will put principle above politics, and I think that they will vote to impeach this president. I do believe we're moving in the right direction. And there are people who currently are not right there, but I think history is driving this now. People make history, and sometimes history will make people. I think history is going to make a lot of people have second thoughts about positions they've held, and I think they'll come on board.
While I have you, I want to ask about the other big news. Chairman Nadler telling MSNBC's Rachel Maddow last night that they're moving towards potentially private Bob Mueller testimony.
Sure.
And so my question to you is, if this is so important...
I got you a sandwich. That's fine. I'm almost done.
We've heard so much about. Shouldn't the House decide what is the best course and not the witness? And do you think Mr. Mueller should take questions in public?
Mr. Melber, I have already indicated that we don't have to have testimony. What was given to us by the special counsel, what was given to us is more than enough. The Mueller report lays it out. And we've had over 800 former federal prosecutors to say that if this were anyone other than the president, the person would be prosecuted. I believe that we have enough evidence to go forward without Mr. Mueller. But now I think that it would be beneficial to have him give his testimony, and I think it would be beneficial for him to do it in the presence of the public. Transparency would be good. But I won't quarrel with him if he wants to do it behind closed doors after having made a statement. I believe that's what's being said. The important thing to remember is that Mr. Comey was fired for investigating the president, and the president confessed to that. Mr. Mueller investigated it. He started with that as the genesis. And he has concluded that he cannot indict the president because
I got you
policy.
a toasted chicken sandwich.
Oh, that's fine, Max.
It's in the bonus.
Max, the first
reasons
meal.
why obstruction may have taken place. And for us to move on, I think, to be very honest with you, Mr. Mueller is an honorable man, and he understands that the framers of the Constitution intended that Congress do its job. We have to have the will.
Right.
The framers have given us a way. And if we don't do our job, here's what will happen. The balance of power as we see it in this country will be shifted. We will have a president who doesn't have a check on him because the Congress is the check. And when we don't check him, he will assume more authority, more power, and he will assume the power of a monarch. We don't want a monarchy. We want a democracy in the United States of America.
I think that's well put. And to distill some of what you're saying, either you check the president or Congress ends up checking itself. Stay with me. I want to bring in J.W. Burritt, Trump transition staffer, who actually quit over some policy differences and now is also calling for impeachment. I don't think it's every day that someone in your position and Mr. Congressman Green's position would be exactly on the same page, but it is the Trump era. Explain how you got here.
Yeah, in fact, I've testified in front of Representative Green, and we don't often agree. But I got here because I read the Mueller report, and because it's clear to me that the president engaged in obstruction of justice up to 12 counts, and was possibly even successful in hiding the truth. There are still text messages, WhatsApp messages we haven't seen because they've been deleted. And I got here, I think, because it's clear to me the emperor has no clothes. I mean, let's just put it that way. And it's surprising to me that I don't have more of my former colleagues in the Republican caucus on the Hill speaking out. Justin Amash, I think, was brave. Hopefully more will come along. But I think we need to see more leadership from the Democrats as well on this. It's time for impeachment.
And when you look at this president... Oh, well, go ahead, sir. Yes.
Mr. Member, if you would, I'd like to respond because I concur. I think that the gentleman is eminently correct. And I think that we have to make a couple of points because there's talk about the Clinton impeachment. That was party lines in the Senate and a handful of Democrats in the House. Those who want this to become a walk in the park are sadly mistaken. The framers of the Constitution indicated that it would not be something that would be easy to do, but that's why we have the jobs, because we do the difficult things. It is going to be divisive. That's understandable. But this Constitution, this country can survive impeachment. We survived it with Clinton. We survived it with Andrew Johnson. And if we don't do it, the Congress will become a toothless paper tiger. For those who don't understand the process, the court where the president will be tried is the Senate with the Chief Justice presiding. The Chief Justice, all of these subpoenas that we want, we can get them through Chief Justice Roberts. We will have a trial there. There will be prosecutors from the House called managers, and they can get all of this evidence. And all courts other than that court is an inferior court when it comes to the question of impeachment.
I'm only interjecting because since I invited JW on, I want to give him in one more time before we finish. JW, the president clearly has decided that maximum stonewalling and maximum impact is his way forward. Based on your knowledge, your unique knowledge really of having been in the transition and been around it, do you think that anything will move him, or does he look at a week like this politically as exactly what he wanted?
I think that the next shoe to drop will be Maxine Waters' investigation of the Deutsche Bank documents. She's already won at the district court level, having been someone who wrote subpoenas for that committee, for the Republican chairman who preceded her. I'm pretty clear on this committee's subpoena power, and they're squarely in their rights to get those documents, and that's going to be the next shoe to drop. And that speaks to, frankly, very directly, the Mueller report. Remember, one reason he was dangling pardons in front of Michael Cohen was to stop Cohen from revealing previous instances of bank fraud and who knows what else. in the president's dealings with Deutsche Bank. So it's all connected, it's all interconnected, and it continues the momentum toward impeachment, I think.
Fascinating. As I mentioned, I got to fit in a break. J.W. Gordon, Christina Greer, Maya Wiley, and Congressman Al Green, thanks to each of you for joining me this Friday night. Thank you.
Well, I thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. We have a lot more ahead. A top Democrat warning about Donald Trump's corrupt move, this brand new shift of power to Attorney General Barr. And then this magazine covers going viral for a reason, roasting Barr and others as shining lackeys. Meanwhile, Speaker Pelosi responding to a very new propaganda campaign. This is 21st century stuff. We're going to show you how to be on guard so you don't get fooled. Also, in a whole different story, a big court win for abortion rights tonight. And John Flannery and T. Grizzly on Fallback Friday. Don't miss it. I'm Ari Melber. You're watching The Beat on MSNBC.
People with type 2 diabetes are excited about the potential of once-weekly Ozempic. In a study with Ozempic, a majority of adults lowered their blood sugar and reached an A1C of less than 7 and maintained.
Under 7?
And you may lose weight. In the same one-year study, adults lost on average up to 12 pounds.
Up to 12 pounds?
A 2-year study showed that Ozempic does not increase the risk of major cardiovascular events like heart attack, stroke, or death.
No increased risk.
Ozempic should not be the first medicine for treating diabetes or for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not share needles or pens. Don't reuse needles. Do not take Ozempic if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Ozempic. Stop taking Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. Tell your doctor if you have diabetic retinopathy or vision changes. Taking Ozempic with a sulfonylurea or insulin may increase the risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, and constipation. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I discovered the potential with Ozempic.
Ask your healthcare provider today about once-weekly Ozempic.
This is my body's proof.
Proof of less joint pain.
And clear skin.
Proof that I can fight psoriatic arthritis.
With Humira. Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to both joint and skin symptoms. It's proven to help relieve pain, stop further irreversible joint damage, and clear skin in many adults. Humira is the #1 prescribed biologic for psoriatic arthritis.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Ask your rheumatologist about Humira. Go to mypsaproof.com to see proof in action.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. That's right, free. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. And it's free. Call right now for your free book. And as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report. We researched over 1,200 annuities and summarized the rates and benefits of annuities from financially strong insurers. Again, that's Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free. We're calling Annuity General today. Supplies are limited. Call now. Call 800-769-0755.
Under U.S. law, the CIA and intelligence agencies make the big calls on intelligence. They can only be overruled by the president. Until today. This just changed in a profound way because President Trump has handed off his own intelligence powers to a cabinet official. And it's not one in the intelligence agencies or one overseeing the military. The president is handing off his own unitary powers to a man who increasingly looks like the most powerful figure in the entire Trump administration, and certainly one of Trump's favorites. I'm talking, of course, about Attorney General Bill Barr, who, as of today, may now override the expertise and nonpartisan judgments of intelligence professionals. Now, why does he suddenly get this power, which has never been taken from the intelligence agencies before? Well, I'll tell you the answer. On this one, it's a pretty clear storyline. The White House isn't even claiming this is for national security or a forward-looking policy to serve the public. The White House admits this is all about strengthening Barr's hand and reviewing the Mueller probe. And he is in favor with Trump for saying things about that probe like this.
It's a very unusual situation to have opposition research like that, and to use that to conduct counterintelligence against the American political campaign is a strange, would be a strange development. I think there were some very strange developments during that period. That's one of the things we want to look into.
This is not normal. In essence, it can probably only go two ways. If Barr ultimately agrees with these other intel officials' calls, then this apparent shift or power grab wouldn't change what becomes public. And so later we would look back on tonight and say, well, maybe it was pointless, meaning why do it at all? The other option, door number two, is that Barr overrides them. And then we may be headed for an epic clash between what Trump's own intel chiefs think is required for security and what Mr. Barr thinks is necessary to probe or undercut Mueller. Now, Democrats are upset. Intel leaders in that party say it's corrupt and contrary to how the intelligence community does their jobs protecting this country. I'm joined by former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner. You've dealt with a lot of national security issues. You work for Bob Mueller. Is this a substantively solid idea?
Ari, this is a horrible idea, and your intro was spot on, because you could almost see if a president wanted to delegate these sort of declassification responsibilities to, for example, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats. And you know what? Dan Coats, I hope we can all agree, has been maybe a pinpoint of light in an otherwise really dark and corrupt administration. But he's an intel guy, and he is the person who can make these difficult calls of what can be declassified, what can be made public, and what, how we can best avoid risking, the safety of our overseas assets. But to give this to Barr, when Barr has already shown that he is happy to engage in this pattern of saying and doing anything.
To your point, doesn't it short circuit the key fight here? And we have, as you say, Coats oversees everything, right? Then you have 16 intelligence agencies. These battles do go on, and sometimes there are good faith disagreements. But this isn't like getting a second opinion from a doctor. This is like getting a second opinion from Rudy Giuliani on your heart surgery.
Yeah, or it's like, asking your dentist about whether you need heart surgery. I mean, it's mixing apples and oranges, and frankly, the apples are rotten. And what we've already seen is the pattern of Barr saying and doing anything to support the president, whether it's no obstruction, no collusion, and when we look at the Mueller report, that is untrue, whether it's spying when there's no evidence of illegal conduct by our law enforcement or intelligence committees, or whether it's misrepresenting Mueller's findings so dramatically that Mueller has to write a letter.
That brings us to the New Yorker cover. I mentioned this at the top of our broadcast. Sometimes it really captures it. We're going to put it on the screen for viewers. I mean, this is the shoe shining. And the difference in this picture that I'd like you to speak to is Senator Graham and Senator McConnell, they might be criticized by this acerbic cartoon, but they are political figures. They can get on their knees and shine shoes or stand up to the people in their party. They're political. Is there something wrong with Mr. Barr being in that same category given his constitutional obligations?
Yeah, there is, Ari, because as the head of basically law enforcement, as the Attorney General, he is assisting the president in weaponizing our law enforcement function. And the whole thing is obviously to help distract the American public from all of the evidence of obstruction of justice, felony offenses that we now know the president committed. So, this is just ratcheting up the danger, and I think it highlights how Congress's sort of timidity and not moving forward is going to continue to inure to the detriment of the American people.
It's well put, and I think it's an important issue. Glenn Kirshner, as always, thank you.
Thanks, Ari.
Taking a turn to a totally different and new story, Donald Trump helping spread distorted videos of Speaker Pelosi. She's responding. It's a new war of propaganda. We'll tell you how to be able to respond against it. We're back in 30.
As the one who's always trapped beneath the duvet, I'm begging you, take Gas-X. Your tossing and turning isn't restlessness, it's gas. Gas-X relieves pressure, bloating, and discomfort fast, so we can all sleep easier tonight.
As a real estate agent, I've learned it's excess moisture that causes musty odors. Pro tip, use Damprin. New Damprin drop-in tabs attract and trap excess moisture out of the air, eliminating musty odors. Works every time. Get rid of dampness. Damprin.
This is a news story, and it's one you need to know about as a news or political consumer. A doctored video going totally viral online. Fox Business attacking Speaker Pelosi with these highly edited clips. Donald Trump and his allies fanning the flames. This starts with Pelosi rattling Donald Trump politically. You may have heard about all of that. But I want to show you something here. Take a look at the real video that started this.
We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country. The fact is, something happened there. So I pray for him, and I pray for the United States of America.
So that's what the speaker said in public. People can take it and agree with it or disagree with it. If you want to disagree with it in a democracy, you'd want to know what she really said. But now, for the purposes of truth, I'm going to show you briefly what a new political group is doing. These are opponents of Pelosi altering the video to make it sound like she was somehow slurring her words. And this propaganda, meaning this version of something that didn't actually happen the way it's presented, has already gotten over 2 million views online. So again, I'm airing this as a, if you want to call it this, a kind of informational inoculation. So you or your friends or anyone you talk to, if they are talking about this is what is happening online with propaganda, and this is not the whole story. Take a look.
We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country. The fact is, something happened there. So I pray for him, and I pray for the United States of America.
In a way, you could argue it's subtle, but take a look at what's happening. After Donald Trump says Pelosi's a mess who lost it, meaning there's a larger arc of trying to discredit her as somehow not all there, Trump last night retweets a Fox Business segment that has a video montage from a 20-minute news conference. Now, it's not slowed down, but it's edited together to try to also suggest that she keeps stumbling over her words.
We had a little took no long look on the floor, custody of the border. Everyone said they started sending signals to U.S., Mexico, Canada. But that's not the accurate kind. Some people call it NAFTA, some call it NAFTA 2.0, working together to make past that. The three things. We're very busy people.
This is a bit of a new step in information political warfare, and it's a way that video editing and online sharing and all of this stuff we keep hearing about is reinforcing a political message from the top. Now, Donald Trump, the president, was asked about all of this today.
Well, I don't know about the video. What do you know between your physical attack on the speaker? You're saying, excuse me. This just shows how fake you and the news are. When you say a personal attack, did you hear what she said about me long before I went after her? She said terrible things, so I just responded in kind. Look, you think Nancy's the same as she was? She's not.
I'm joined by Leo Wright-Rigueur, professor from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and Sam Seder, host of the Majority Report radio show. He's covered the spread of propaganda and right-wing propaganda before. Good evening to both of you.